And welcome back. I'm pre-recording this because the day it comes out Friday is Valentine's Day, and my girlfriend wants to do stuff, obviously. Uh, and we just kind of want to spend a little time together. So this comes to us from Common Johnson Law. The thumbnail and the image you see in the background is not mine at all. It comes from Blue Lightning 733 from DeviantArt. I do want to give that proper shout out because I did have someone kind of mention how I took um the image they did for a thumbnail at one point. And I don't mean any offense, but I just normally I've done that so many times and no one said anything because I think a lot of people, and then there's nothing wrong if you're a little touchy about it. I think a lot of people kind of just don't care. They just like, oh cool, my art's being used in something else, something I made is being used in something else. But at the same time, especially if someone's doing legitimate art, not crapping on anyone in DeviantArt for these, but these, I mean, I can't make them. But in terms of like computer making stuff, this is overly not that hard to do, as far as I know. But then again, you're coming from a guy who barely knows how to do what he does here, so I'm not really that one to talk. But yeah, to be fair, when I'm using something like this specific, I should be giving a proper shot. So again, this is from Blue Lightning 733. But it's a battle royale between, and god damn it, my sinuses are messing me up so bad. The pressure in my ear is so up at the moment. It's so irritating. It feels so weird. But it's a battle royale between the movie Spider-Man. So Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland. So the question is, if these three Spider-Men, the same character technically speaking, from different universes, were to meet each other in combat, who would ultimately win? And let's see, this is difficult because these are Spider-Men at different points in their lives, different age range. Tobey being the oldest, Holland being the youngest. But they're also from very different universes, having to take on very different threats. So we have to look at how they differ like physically. B, look at how they differ mentally, and C, look at how they differ from battle experience. So that's kind of going to give us our best look. Let's look at physicalities first. In terms of like sheer strength, it's very difficult to kind of put where these guys honestly stand physically to each other. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man never illustrate. I mean, he's illustrated some very impressive feats. I think the most impressive one would be the train sequence in the second film. But even that he didn't just stop a train. No, he had to do a lot of crap to keep that train from eventually going off the rails. Really, what happened when you break it down is that the train ultimately stopped because it stopped running. If the train decided to keep going past that point on the bridge, like if it was still literally moving, then yeah, Tobey would have gone off. But look, what he did was still impressive nonetheless. Strength-wise, the best strength. The problem here also is that Andrew got the least amount of screen time. He's only got 2 movies, whereas the rest of these guys have 3 movies for Tobey, 2 currently for Tom, plus his other MCU appearances. So Andrew does get a little shafted in the feats displayed category comparatively. But we still see him hold a car up, which has to weigh at least a ton or 2. We know in the comics, Spider-Man can lift upwards of like 10 tons at least. Sometimes more. It all depends on the circumstances. But he's generally in the safe, like low, like tens of ton range. It's tough to pinpoint where Holland's best feat of strength is because he's got quite a few. Whether it be lifting himself out of the debris in the first Spider-Man, Spider-Man Far From Home, whether it be catching the enhanced fist of the Winter Soldier, which is actually an impressive feat if when you really think about it. Holding up a fallen a piece of a plane that Cap kind of cut, and he has to hold the scaffolding more or less. Go into Infinity War. Catches Obsidian, calls giant ass hammer, which that's an impressive feat. He is able to tag Thanos a couple times, but that ultimately doesn't mean much. I'm trying to think. Spider-Man Far From Home again. Far From Home. Homecoming, where he's holding where he's holding the boat together. Again, kind of similar to Tobey. He's struggling to do that, but he's still managing to do that. So that's an impressive feat. Anything for Far From Home that's really impressive strength-wise? I mean, he can crush those Edith drones barehanded. That's pretty impressive, but I wouldn't say comparatively compared to some of his other stuff. Same with Endgame didn't show off much of his actual feats. So it's difficult. It is difficult to pinpoint who would win outright in strength. If I were to be leaning towards one, I'd say it probably would be Tom Holland's, simply because we just get to see more of what he's capable of physically. Yeah, Toby's holding that the is it not? It's a carousel. It's a trolley full of people, but we don't know how heavy that was, so it's not a very good representation of how strong he is, honestly. If we're talking about speed, we're not talking about running. We're talking about reflexes. They all have the spider sense, so it's about how well do they react to their own spider sense. And this one, actually, I'll say is probably going to Toby most of the time, because even Andrew got tagged like by a stray bullet every now and then. Of course, then again, he got tagged by the Goblin's blades too. So I don't know. I guess we could put them both on par with each other. But honestly, this is actually where Tom Holland gets shafted, because in the second film, it's something that he's still trying to figure out. Like, the difference between the two adult or more adult Spider-Man and Tom is that Tom is still a kid. Ultimately, he's only in his teens. He ultimately hasn't been Spider-Man very long compared to the other two, which have been doing it clearly for a longer time than he has. So there's that. Fighting like style, combat experience, I'll say Tom does have the advantage. We just see a bit more of an actual fighting style with him, whereas these guys are just kind of throwing punches and using their spider sense. But he does seem to have a bit of a style that comes with him. Durability, that's going to be another big factor in this fight. Tom Holland. Tobey Maguire took a pumpkin bomb to the face, took a giant ass beating from Sandman in a giant form while being held down by Venom. So yeah, he's definitely got some durability on him. I'll say this: Andrew's, as far as we can tell, has not been shown to be that durable. I mean, obviously he's Spider-Man. He got his knocked pretty hard by the lizard. And whereas Tobey's Spider-Man fought honestly a comparable individual, and Venom was still getting his butt kicked most of the time, but was hardly in the same level of pain and effed upness. So Garfield's definitely got a disadvantage there. Holland, we've seen Tom Holland's Spider-Man take it. He had an entire building collapse on him, for God's sake. He dusted and came back to life. Obviously, that one doesn't count. He took a solid, he got clocked by Thanos. Got to give him props on that one. And in terms of Far From Home, oh yeah, he had the entire mind fuckery and I think he got hit by a train, didn't he? When he basically, Mysterio basically lured him out into that, sorry, again, ear being very irritating. No pun intended. Irritating right now. Lured him out. He basically essentially got hit by a train is what happened. And he was still generally okay. Yeah, so I think Garfield actually has the definite disadvantage in terms of durability. So then we go on to experience. Now, in terms of experience, like how long they've been doing it, Garfield is still, both these guys, the whole idea of being Spider-Man is trying to figure it out through these movies. But both Garfield and Maguire, you can tell, have been doing it longer. Especially Maguire. Maguire, you can tell, it's been years. He's been Spider-Man now for years. Whereas Holland, it's definitely only still a couple months, maybe a year. And Garfield, it's definitely only been maybe like a year or two, but he's definitely been doing it longer than Spider-Man has. So, than Tom Holland has. So experience-wise, Tom Holland, unfortunately, kind of falls into third place on that one. And I'd say that Toby's probably got the most experience overall. But now we get into the real thing. Combat experience, the kind of threats they've had to face, and how they would prepare to fight the other. This is where it's a complete 180 of what we just did. Because when you really break down all the threats in the original Spider-Man trilogy, there's a realistic level of threat to them. And what I mean by that is this. let's compare Electro, for example, from the Amazing Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin, or um, or Doc Ock, or hell, Venom or Sandman. Honestly, like level of threat and power wise, like they don't threaten, they don't give off that kind of thing. Yeah, their plans are evil, especially like making a son. But when you actually look at the bad guy himself, yeah, like you get the impression that Garfield wouldn't have as much trouble with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin or Mulaney's Doc Ock, hell, or even the Venom we got from that. You just don't get that impression that he would have that much difficulty with him compared to Tom Maguire. And that's because that comes from their personality. That when you really break down Maguire's character was kind of a dick. He really did make it all about himself. Whereas Garfield, Lizard, quite frankly, Lizard is a far more physically imposing threat than someone like Venom is. Sandman's kind of an exception there, but Sandman's kind of the exception in the entire thing. But Lizard would frankly be giving Doc Ock even a run for his money, though I think Ock could probably beat the Lizard, but it would be tough because, again, he's much larger and physically powerful, and regenerative capabilities are top-notch. Then you factor in Electro, which could probably fry the majority of Maguire's villains. And then you factor in also the fact that there was another Green Goblin in that movie who, I'll admit, that as dorky as they both are, the foes probably would beat that Green Goblin. And don't forget the Rhino when because he has a giant mechanical rhino suit. So even though we barely see it, we can tell it's a pretty powerful, a pretty boss looking suit. So I definitely say that his Rogues Gallery seem to be more powerful, at least by overall appearances and what they're doing. But see, this is where the advantage of being able to share Spider-Man with the MCU came in, because he's fought the Vulture. Honestly, somebody who's probably comparable to one of the Goblins. Not amazing, but he's dangerous in his own right. He also fought Mysterio. Again, different kind of guy, but messing with you. But he also fought the Black Order. He fought Thanos. He fought an entire army of Outriders and other people in Thanos' army. And that was great. He had his Iron Spider suit, but he still did that. He fought against Captain America. He fought against Ant-Man. He's fought against individuals, quite frankly, who put a lot of these guys to shame, and he's come out at least alive. So if these three make in a fight, who's going to win? Well, their spider senses are frankly going to cancel each other out. So that means they're going to be able to actually get hits in on each other more than likely. So these guys are probably going to be duking it out for a while. I think if there's going to be one that falls first, it's probably going to be Tobey's. I think his Spider-Man's just a little over the hill compared to the other two. So, I mean, they might like both hit him at the same time, and he can't dodge both hits, and he just takes in the gut and then poof, gets hit. The one other big thing that there's a difference between Tobey and the other two is that they don't have organic web shooters. But for some reason, Tobey's powers are tied to his confidence in himself, which is weird. So technically, Tobey has an endless supply of webbing. However, he can't do trick shots. And both these guys can, on some level, do trick shots with Garfield. And God almighty, the amount of trick shots with Tom Holland. And that, I think, is going to be the thing. The diversity, the level of opponents he's fought and managed to beat. The fact that he's probably he's a bit stronger, I'd imagine, not by much, by a bit. And he's just had a bit more experience dealing with just more individuals because he's had more time to do that. So I think Tobey goes down first, and then it'd be a fight between Garfield and Holland, where, again, Holland being a bit more experienced in terms of his years of experience gives them somewhat of an edge in that regard. But I think Holland does have a bit more of a fighting style to him. It's not much, but it's something. And he's got web shots, which would I don't imagine Garfield would be prepared for. So, versus a web grenade, and then gets hit, it's a crap, and then he gets hit by the web, and Holland comes in. They do get out for a while longer. I think ultimately it does come down to the fact that Holland has fought just stronger guys than either of these put together and come out alive. His suit is far more advanced. Like, his suit actually has an AI in it. So he could actually be able to use pinpoint using both his intellect and the suit weaknesses in the other two. So ultimate, and the fact is that he will be able to overpower, at least on some level, the other two in terms of pure physical strength. I'm going with Tom Holland's Spider-Man in this case. I think the odds play out in his favor a lot more. So I'm going to go with Tom Holland. But let me know what you think. I could be dead wrong on this. Absolutely. Frankly, it's just an opinion. So let me know what you think. Do you think it's Tom Holland, or you think it's Tobey Maguire, or you think it's Andrew Garfield? If I were to say who my favorite Spider-Man is, I would say, I mean, it probably is Tom Holland, but other than I really enjoyed Andrew Garfield. I liked Garfield, frankly, more than Tobey. I did. But I don't know. Who's your favorite Spider-Man? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. I'll do a review of it at some point. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'm wondering if I'll have What If up by now, but who knows? We'll find out. Later.